Hello, welcome back. It's Rapid Regeneration. I'm David Escamilla. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not making any claims about diseases or medical claims. I'm just a regular guy. I just happen to have a very good discernment. I'm trained as an investigator to figure out the truth. And I have a very good BS detector, but I'm in touch with God, and I've been trying to navigate my way. I think that when I was super sick and just feeling horrible for years, I still had this kernel of hope that I could figure it out and that the answers were out there in the universe. And I found a doorway that cracked open, and I peered into it, and I started to palpate that there was truth coming from there. And I went through that doorway, and I've never looked back. And basically, I figured out how to solve my problems, how to completely recover, and I figured out a lot, even how to go to the next levels beyond that. And I'm now committed to sharing that information with you. It is my mission to help you. So, that's it. Basically, this segment is about proper food combining. Proper food combining. Gosh, I mean, this is just... there's my pen. This is absolutely game-changing, and I so wish that I had known this information back when I was getting started. And this could be a whole book on itself, honestly. Now, I do have a book. It's called Rapid Regeneration. And if you want to check it out, and it's a chapter in the book, but it's the longest chapter. Oh, well, maybe the second longest chapter. It's a very epic chapter because the subject in itself is so big. It could be its own program, its own book. So this knowledge is so game-changing, and when I started to figure this out to some degree, and it really helped me. But basically when I started to really understand and wrap my mind around it, it was game-changing, and I've really done my homework on this one for you, and not only with years and years of my own experience, but mentorship from the top experts, deep research, and yes, to put this together. So it is a skeleton key to, in other words, if you can't get this right, food combining, then all the other information that is so helpful, that is so revolutionary and so game-changing isn't going to work. So that's how important this is. I'm not overselling this. That is how important that this, and essential and critical, that the food combining information is. Because you could have two scenarios. On the one hand, basically somebody could really clean up their diet, they're eating super healthy, maybe even they're eating raw foods. Maybe they're completely raw and they're just eating all raw foods because they're really desperate to, or inspired to solve their problems or go to the next level. Okay, this person could still unknowingly be creating very acidic conditions from bad food combining. And this can absolutely create a block. It can block the body from being able to alkalize itself and be able to heal itself. So, and by the way, I see it all the time. I see it all the time with the way people are eating. And I think that maybe they just don't know how this works. And basically the science behind this and the philosophy and the approach behind this. Okay, on the other hand, you could have another individual. Now, let's say they're eating a more modern diet of kind of your cooked foods. And okay, if their food is combined properly, even if that food is acid forming to begin with, some people can still maintain relatively good well-being for a period of time. So look at like the paleo style of eating. This is a whole movement, and it pays tribute to good food combining in a way, because somebody might eat like roasted meat, and then they might eat some maybe a salad or some cooked vegetables, but they're not going to eat dairy, they're not going to eat any bread or grains. So even though the meat is going to be decently acid forming, the cooked vegetables are going to be mildly acid forming, this is still good food combining. And they would have, after eating this meal, they would have avoided much worse acidic chemistry if they had combined foods improperly. They would have had even much more acids exponentially. Okay, if this same paleo person, again, at another separate meal, if they eat a baked potato or a sweet potato, and then maybe they have a salad again, or maybe cooked vegetables, but no meat or no protein, again, this is good food combining. Even though the starchy, gluey, cooked potato, it has a high glycemic index, it has complex sugars, it's still acid forming. But again, they would have avoided much exponentially worse acidic consequences if they had combined their food improperly. Now, if they ate the meat and the potato at the same meal, this is a classic example, and I'll tell you exactly why, but of bad food combining. Now, this is going to create so much more nutrient deprivation and acidic consequences in the body. So, those are the two examples. You have a paleo eater who's combining food properly and is still maintaining a pretty good, a decent, energy, and feels good and figures out something that works for them. Then you have someone who's like, oh, I'm into raw foods and alkaline foods, but they're combining foods improperly, and they're still experiencing stagnation, acids, and bad results, and being blocked from where they're trying to go. So, these are the two scenarios. This is the power of food combining, proper food combining. So, and there's so many examples. I'm not saying that cooked meat or cooked potatoes are healthy. That's not the point. But the acidic nature of these foods is multiplied exponentially when they're combined together. And I'll tell you exactly why. But first you have to understand there's so many examples of this. How about a turkey sandwich, a hamburger, fish and chips, chicken and rice, spaghetti and meatballs, meat and potatoes? I mean, there are so many examples of modern foods. Yes, so either you can use this segment for one of two things. You can either figure out how to eat cooked, unhealthy foods in a strategic way. That's going to be a lot less harmful, and it'll create less acidity. Or you can, if you're embracing more healthy foods, like especially your fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, how to avoid a situation where you're eating healthy food choices, but unbeknownst to you, you're still harming the body. You're depriving it of nutrients, and you're creating acidic, harmful conditions due to the bad food combining. Okay, so before I tell you the exact tenets of this, a couple other things you got to get your mind around. This is an epic subject, so commit to figuring it out. And by the end of this, you should have I don't want to say a mastery, but close to it. Okay, a couple other things. It's tempting to think, well, I'm eating raw foods, I'm eating healthy organic foods, and therefore my body is just going to appreciate me regardless of how I can consume these different ingredients. I wish it was that easy. Okay, but in reality, what this is recommending, this whole approach of food combining, it's going back to nature. So it's food combining which is actually simple. For you to think, I'm going to put all these different things in my body and it'll appreciate me, that's actually what's complex, because humans have overcomplicated things, we've over-intellectualized things, and if you if you look at nature, barely any other animal is going to combine different types of foods when they're eating. So yes, basically, if you remember the segment about how the body digests and processes different foods, basically those are your carbs, proteins, and fats. That segment is about, and that's powerful. If you haven't gone through that, you should. That's about how those foods are processed if they're eaten alone. Okay, now this segment needs to observe how the body behaves when different types of digestive activities interfere with each other when you eat these different foods together. So I'm going to walk you through several concepts. It's taken me so much, to put this together for you. And these concepts are meant to be taken with a grain of salt. They work for me. They work for so many countless others. Everybody's a little bit different. Every body is a little bit different. Some people have a higher tolerance for improperly combining foods with others, and they still do fairly well. So take each piece of data with a little bit of nuance and use your intuition as a barometer and try it out for yourself and see what works for you to achieve your goals. So ultimately, the goal is alkalinization, detoxification, regeneration, and healing. So please don't get mad at me. I'm not trying to spoil the fun of eating pleasurably. I'm not trying to make eating healthy raw foods not fun because I'm creating a bunch of rigid rules. Okay, I'm not the one. I didn't make this up. I didn't set it up like this. How the molecules react and the different chemistry. I'm just looking at this objectively, and I understand some of it's inconvenient, but this will increase your awareness. Otherwise, you may not have known there was any problem. Because trust me, look, I love one of my go-to snacks when I was first getting into raw foods. I love a banana with some almond butter. Oh, and maybe even a glass of like almond milk or coconut milk. Oh my God. It's an amazing snack. I'm not saying you can never eat it. I'm just saying understand what goes on when this happens. Just understand and raise your awareness. And maybe you're not going to eat it as often. But I'm not saying nobody's perfect. This is not about trying to live like a monk in some form of perfection or in a bubble, So when I list out these concepts, okay, there's 19 concepts, and I'm going to move through them quickly. But basically, it's not always black and white. Okay, I'm not expecting you to be a perfect A+ student, teacher's pet, extra credit, and do all these things perfectly. But just use these to raise your awareness so you know what's going on and why maybe you feel a certain way. Okay, concept number 1, simple sugars are the easiest thing for the body to digest. They're digested in the small intestine. Okay, so we've covered this before. We're beating a dead horse. These are your sugars from fruits and vegetables. And basically, the fruits basically don't spend very much time in the stomach. The stomach has a reputation for being an acid chamber, but in fact, it doesn't need much of an acidic process. When you eat fruits by themselves, they're going to move swiftly through the stomach, and they're going to go into the small intestine, where they're going to get digested via an alkaline process with enzymes excreted by the intestines and pancreas. And the glucose is going to need more assistance from the pancreas as opposed to fructose. So that's what happens if you eat fruits, simple sugars, alone, or vegetables. Okay, concept number 2. Eat your fruits and your vegetables for the most part by themselves without combining them with other types of foods. So, yes, we just described if you eat fruit alone, it's going to go quickly through the stomach and it's going to go to the small intestine. And the result is incredibly powerful chemistry, alkalizing. It's going to cleanse and revitalize your body. Now, if this result, the amazing healing results, are dependent on the fruit passing through the stomach undeterred and to their destination, which is the small intestine. If the simple sugars get held up in the stomach, the sugars will ferment. Now think about it. Your stomach is a chamber. It's almost 100 degrees. Think about if you were to chew up a piece of fruit, if you spit it out into a bowl, and on a hot day, 100-degree day, you put it out, and humid, hot and humid, into the hot sun on a hot summer day. Now, without the enzymes from the small intestines to break it down, it's going to sit there and it's going to start fermenting and spoiling within an hour. And so instead of the fruit digesting properly in the small intestine, it's now going to start to basically ferment and putrefy and rot, and bacteria will break it down, because as this is happening, instead of getting the benefit of the simple sugars in the small intestine, instead it's going to spoil the nutrients. Those simple sugars turn into alcohol, turn into acetic acid as they're held up in the stomach. And basically, you've ruined a good thing if this is what happens to your fruit. So why does it get held up in the stomach? Typically because it's being combined with either a starch or a protein or a fat. Okay, so I know, I'm sorry. I love a banana with almond butter too. But I'm just telling you what's going to happen. Okay, concept number 3. Protein is digested in the stomach and requires a complex acid digestive process. Now again, we're beating a dead horse because we've covered this in previous segments. But protein is basically digested via your stomach. It's going to release pepsin. This is an acid enzyme. It basically helps chew up the protein and break it down so that the small intestine and pancreas can further digest it. And ultimately the body can use the amino acids from the protein. So now here's the thing, is that protein needs this acid process in the stomach. However, if you ingest sugars, then an alkali is released in the stomach. So if the stomach releases this alkali, it inhibits the release of the acidic pepsin. So it's an alkaline and an acidic process both being released at the stomach. Even if some amount of pepsin gets released, again, you have an alkaline enzyme being secreted and an acidic enzyme being secreted. These two things are going to basically neutralize each other. Now you're going to have a protein sitting in the stomach, not getting digested, and the sugar sitting in the stomach being held up by the protein. So neither one is going to get digested properly by the stomach. Okay, concept number 4. Each stage of the digestive process is like a puzzle piece. If one stage is missing or messed up, then it won't fit into the next stage. Okay, for example, if protein is eaten with a starch, then ptyalin enzyme is secreted to digest the starch, and it's going to inhibit the production of pepsin. And basically the protein will not digest properly. Okay, so now what's going to happen is you're going to have this undigested protein, this hunk of protein. It's still going to eventually get transported into the small intestines. However, it's undigested, so the small intestines cannot convert undigested protein into amino acids. It can only convert digested protein that's already been broken down. by pepsin into amino acids. So, to be more specific, after pepsin converts the protein into peptides, basically the protein leaves the stomach, it receives an enzyme trypsin from the pancreas, and it goes in the small intestine where the protein is converted by a small intestine enzyme called arepsin. It's converted into amino acids. So if any of these steps on the conveyor belt are messed with, then it destroys the body's ability. If the protein is not broken down in the stomach by pepsin, then the enzyme arepsin is completely ineffective. So it's basically just a hunk of undigested matter which will basically rot and ferment now as it moves through the intestines. And not to mention that you don't get the nutrients from it. Okay, concept number 5. Fruits and starches should not be eaten together. If fruits are eaten with a starch, it will inhibit the digestion of the starch. Okay, the eating of the fruits can degrade or destroy ptyalin, which is a necessary enzyme for starch digestion. Therefore, your starches and your simple sugars, your fruits, should not be eaten together. Also, the sugar from the fruit will ferment in the stomach. While waiting for the starch to digest, it's going to turn into alcohol, acids, and it deprives the body of the simple sugars. Now, starches are not really recommended to eat anyways, but since you might eat them anyways, like your corn, your potatoes, then it's worth covering this information. Okay, concept number 6. Protein and starch eaten together are a classic violation of good food combining. Again, starch requires an alkaline environment, protein requires an acid environment. Both processes get halted out, they get canceled out, and neither food gets properly digested. Okay, concept number 7. Different digestive juices are secreted depending on the food which is eaten. Now, this is fascinating. Or maybe it's not. Maybe only if you nerd out can you appreciate it. But basically, there was this series of experiments in the early 1900s by Pavlov. And it's called Pavlov's dogs. And he did extensive experiments. And basically, the smell of a food, or even the preparation of a food, will make the body produce enzyme production that's suited for that specific food. So your body is amazingly efficient, and it doesn't want to use energy that it doesn't need to use. It's energy miser. So it's going to produce exactly what it needs to break down what you're feeding it. And just understand your body's designed for a natural setting. It's not trying to mess with you. It's not trying to inconvenience you by having these problems with food combining. It's designed for a natural setting. So it doesn't understand these menus with these contrived dishes, with all these smorgasbord of different ingredients and macronutrients all in one serving. So just don't get mad at your body, and just help your body and feed it on its own level that it's designed to function at, because it will give you what it needs to digest a food. That's all it's trying to do, is help you. It's trying to secrete this enzyme. But you need to help it, because you're the boss. It can't control. It's trying to make two enzymes that'll cancel each other out. And you just have to have this awareness. Okay, concept number 8. Is this blowing your mind already, or are you mad because this is inconvenient information? I'm sorry. I understand too. I went through the same thing. And it doesn't mean, sometimes rules are meant to be broken, but just understand how it works. Okay, concept number 8. The stomach has different compartments which are suited for digestion of different types of food. So you have the lower end of the stomach, the distal end, which is more used for gastric juice digestion, acid or your protein digestion, versus you have the upper end of the stomach, the motile end, which is a chamber where salivary digestion could take place, aka starch. All right, so here's what's crazy, right? It gets wilder. If meat and bread or meat and starch are eaten, protein and starch, in separate bites, the body could be intelligent enough to separate these foods within the areas of the stomach, with the starch going to the upper part of the stomach and the protein going to the lower part of the stomach, so that they could digest separately. How cool is that? However, if the protein and starch are chewed together, such as a hamburger, I mean, we mentioned so many examples earlier, lasagna, and the mixture is sent to the stomach, then the stomach may not be able to tell the difference of the chewed up mash and separate it. And they basically both get held up in the area, and they both putrefy and don't digest fully. Yeah. So if you are gonna eat meat and potatoes, or if you're gonna eat what's a good example? Then basically eat it, a starch and a protein. Try to eat them in separate bites. I know you might look like a crazy person. You're going to be eating the bun off the top of a burger and then eating the meat, with a fork separately. But just understand that the body's trying to help you, but if you give it just a chewed up mash, it's like, what is this? Okay. Concept number 9, putrefaction by means of bacterial breakdown is a harmful and toxic process which should be avoided. This is very, very important to understand, because basically 90+% of people are going to combine foods improperly, but they still survive. Their body still continues on. Well, how? That food gets broken down. It just gets broken down by putrefaction. And although people can tolerate this and they can live and go on, it is not good to have the food decomposing and basically breaking down, going bad, rotting inside the body, because it's going to take another 24 hours, maybe 48 hours before that food comes out the other end. It's going to spend that time in the body, and if it's not digested properly, it's going to putrefy, and it's going to be broken down by bacteria. So yes, basically you have this glob of undigested food, and basically it's going to spoil, decay, deteriorate as it goes through the gut. Is it any wonder why people are having so many intestinal and colon health problems? Okay, now here's the other thing. Now this is also brought up by the scientific community, is that when you have proper breakdown by food, in your stomach, by your pancreas and your intestine, small intestine, by enzymes, when it's digested properly, it does actually resemble putrefaction of the food decaying as it moves through the gut. But just keep in mind that there's a big difference. The end result from proper enzyme digestion is beneficial nutrients instead of toxic materials that come from putrefaction. So the scientific community has shown that they're confused over this, and that they observe bacterial decomposition and putrefaction in the large intestine, the colon, as so-called normal activity, because it closely resembles enzyme breakdown of food. Just keep in mind that the results couldn't be more different. You have one that's alkalizing and healthy and nutritional, and the other one that's, if decomposition occurs, not only are the bacteria taking over, they're robbing you of the nutrients and amino acids, they're creating chemicals through this process of putrefaction, including carbon dioxide, This is going to cause gas and bloating. Phenylpropionic acid, phenylacetic acid, hydrogen sulfide, harmful compounds that lead to over-acidity of the body. Also, the intestines, will actually reabsorb things, and you can absorb those compounds, and they'll go back into the bloodstream. So now, you're going to have defenses to this. Your kidneys are getting overworked. Your kidneys are now going to have to filter out those toxins. Of course, your body's going to have responses to the over-acidity, water retention, mucus formation, cholesterol buildup, and so many other problems. Okay, so we do need to maintain a healthy colony of probiotics. Just keep in mind that having rotting, fermenting foods working its way through the gut actually encourages an environment where parasitic species can thrive. This is going to include fungus, yeast, all sorts of harmful organisms, and unfortunately, yes, even worms of all sizes. So bacterial putrefaction of your food, not your friend. Even though it appears similar to enzyme breakdown of the food, the result is very different. Okay, concept number 10. Fats and proteins should ideally not be eaten together. Now, your fats would be considered something like your oils, your creams, and your fatty meats. Now, very rich and dense fats have an inhibiting effect on the secretion of digestive juices. This means that the digestion of protein can be paused and held up for hours, which can result in the putrefaction of the protein. Now, it seems like the oil and fat together, the oil and fat can simply prolong the digestion of protein, ultimately create more putrefaction and less complete digestion of the protein. So, this isn't like the worst thing ever, but just pay attention to your body, and your level of awareness around this, and you may want to err on the side of being more cautious. Okay, concept number 11. Proteins should generally not be eaten with fruit, although there are a few exceptions. So the fruits basically are going to, unfortunately, ferment. They get held up in the stomach when you eat them with protein. So the fruits are a casualty no matter what. The fruits are going to get ruined. Okay. So if you eat them with protein. But here's the thing, is that basically the effect of eating a fruit can also halt the production of the juices that are needed to break down the protein. So it can also affect the protein being digested correctly. Now, one exception I'm aware of about this is for proteins which are protein rich but also contain oils. So this is namely your nuts and your avocados, and cheese technically, although you shouldn't eat cheese anyways, but these foods are already expected to have a suppressed or delayed secretion of gastric juices due to their fat content inhibiting that. So therefore, it seems like there's not as much of a downside consuming fruits with these types of proteins. In other words, those types of proteins containing oils like your nuts and your avocados, if you eat them with fruits, the fruits are going to get spoiled, but then those protein foods won't be as putrefied. So the protein will basically get spared, but the fruit does get ruined. Okay, concept number 12. Non-starch vegetables are considered neutral and can be combined with other foods. So this is sort of like a neutral category. These are like the Switzerland of food groups, very neutral. And basically these vegetables don't need large amounts of phytoin or a strong alkaline environment to digest properly. And so some people do well, again, on a paleo-type diet. Maybe they eat chicken, turkey, or fish with a non-starchy vegetable, either like a spinach, chard, or kale, like a salad, or like a cooked vegetable, like zucchini or okra or greens. So just to clarify, starchy vegetables should be excluded from being combined with protein. These are going to be your foods like we covered before, your potatoes and your corn. Now there's also more starchy vegetables like your beets, your peas, your carrots and your cauliflower, and like your summer squash and pumpkin. So yes, now we already covered what happens when you combine starch with protein, but non-starch vegetables are considered neutral. You can eat them with your protein. Okay, concept number 13. There does exist in nature food combinations of different substances, like sugars, starches, proteins, and fats. So nature is balanced, and there's rarely ever a pure sugar or a pure fat or starch or protein. So take, for example, a banana. It's partly sugary, it's partly starchy, it contains a decent amount of protein and a modest amount of fat. Now there are actually bananas that are fattier, that are rarer. You don't see them in the supermarket, but the species does exist. Okay, so there does exist, quote, badly combined foods in nature. So, but the body's still able to digest a food like this. And so just understand, this goes back to what we were saying. Actually, this goes into the next concept, which is concept number 14. Some of these concepts are more shades of gray and not black and white. So again, nature has examples of this. So it's not about black and white. You can only eat a pure protein, and then you can only eat this. And to the degree that you combine foods improperly, it's going to be a question of how much did you combine improperly? Was it a little bit? Was it a lot? I mean, this is all happening on a spectrum. So yeah, these are not set in stone laws. There are some nuances involved. These concepts are more like guidelines to help you reach your destination faster and avoid perilous mistakes and errors that can slow you down and block you. Also, it's possible, I said this before, other people can handle bad food combination differently than others, or better. Some people can handle bacterial decomposition better than others from their foods just fermenting in their guts. So, there's nuances. You can game the system, so to speak, even. This is covered in other sections, but for example, you can take like a banana smoothie or a fruit smoothie, and you can add a scoop or two of ground up hemp seeds and chia seed powder into that smoothie. Okay, now is the body going to really know? Because now, again, the banana already has fat and protein in it. Is it really going to know if you increase that fat and protein content by adding in this scoop into the smoothie? So, by the way, this is a trick that really works for me, because you make a fruit smoothie, but you add this hemp and ground up chia seeds, because it curbs my craving for fat and protein for the day. And it seems my body seems to respond well to this combination and digests it well. So keep an open mind. This is not completely cemented in stone and rigid. There is science behind what this is happening, but there's also it's part art. Also, it's not just complete nerdification science. And also with that said, don't completely ignore this information. Just say, oh, well, it's all shades of gray. I'll just do whatever I want. Okay, if you ignore this information, it sounds too difficult or too inconvenient, you are liable to delay getting the results you want. So please expand your awareness and just try some of these out for yourself. Okay, Concept number 15. If foods are combined properly, ideal weight management is more achievable and portion size is not as important. Yes, absolutely. The food is no longer putrefying. It's being digested properly. You're getting the nutrients from it. It's much easier to eliminate weight problems and maintain an ideal weight. And yes, that's one of the big benefits. You don't have to worry so much about the specific portion size and feel the pressure from that. Okay, concept number 16. We're getting close here. I know this is a lot. Drinking liquids during or close to the time of a meal will dilute the digestive juices and have an undesirable effect on the digestive process. Okay, to put it simply, don't drink liquids at meal times. Okay, this is like water and tea. These liquids are going to dilute. It's literally going to water down the stomach enzymes and acids. This is going to cause digestion to take longer, be less effective, and can risk the food not digesting properly, allowing it to move into the bowels undigested so it'll ferment. Now, if you're into eating fruit and you eat a lot of fruit, what you might find is that your thirst actually gets quenched anyways during meals because of the high water content. But if you're going to drink water, drink it in between meals, not during a meal or not right before or right after. Okay, concept number 18. Concept number 17. Eating an abundance of green vegetables can possibly have a beneficial effect or counteract some of the harm of bad food combinations, especially relative to fat digestion, where fat typically delays the digestion of other foods because, like a protein, because it gets held up in the stomach for hours, because it's being broken down by the enzyme lipase. If an abundance of greens are consumed at the same time, it has been reported to prevent such a long delay and speed up the digestion of those foods that are consumed. Kind of crazy. A little hack there. Concept number 18. A few higher level guidelines on eating fruits. So now this is kind of like extra credit. Don't feel disappointed. Don't feel bad if you're not quite there yet. But this is just a higher level approach to eating foods, which is that different categories of fruits should be eaten. Ideally, fruits should be eaten separately, like mono eating. But if you're going to mix them, if you're going to have a fruit salad or smoothie, then ideally combine different categories of fruits separately. You want to eat, ideally, sweet fruits together, acid fruits together, subacid fruits together, berries together, and melons together. Now, if you are going to combine the groups, there's also different ways to combine the groups that are better. So if you're going to eat dried fruits, they should be eaten with sweet fruits. If you're going to mix sweet fruits, mix them with subacid fruits and berries, but not acid fruits. If you're going to mix subacid fruits, you can mix them with acid fruits and berries. Basically, sweet fruits and acid fruits don't mix well. Now, melons, and by the way, you can look up which foods are which. I don't want to just take another zillion hours reading through them all. But yes, you should understand which fruits are simple, sweet, subacid, berries, and acid, and dried. Your sweet fruits is like your bananas, your dates. Acid fruits is like your pineapple, and so on and so forth. So basically, melons should be eaten by themselves, ideally. Melons basically skip the stomach completely. They completely get digested in the small intestine. So if they're held up in the stomach, the sugars will ferment, turn to alcohol very quickly. You miss out on the nutrition and you get the toxicity of the alcohol. So yes, eat melons alone. All right, avocados are a fruit in their own category. Now, they're both a fatty and a protein food. Now, it would be more acceptable if you're going to eat avocados to eat them with acid fruits as opposed to sweet fruits. Okay, coconuts are a starchy protein food. It would be advised to eat this alone and don't combine it with other types of fruit. Okay, again, if fruit are consumed with nuts, although the fruit digestion is going to be spoiled, the digestion of nuts doesn't seem to be affected in a big way. This goes back to, again, the nuts, have both protein and fat. So, and different people's bodies may react differently. Some people may be able to handle this combination better than others. Okay, last final concept. We made it. Concept number 19. As much as different types of foods do not combine well, so too should consideration be made for combining environmental factors with meals. Okay, there's times when you should not eat, such as when you're very tired, right in the middle of a super stressful situation. Let's say if you're in an angry argument with a loved one. Hopefully you're not having an angry argument, but let's just say a heated discussion. Now, this is not always avoidable. Trust me, I understand. Like if you have a job, like I've had a job, and it's just so stressful, and you're like, oh, but you have to eat. So, but just know your body is very intelligent. You're an electrical, vibrational being, and your body is processing all the data that's being inputted, not just the food. So eating is supposed to be done in a relaxed environment. If your body is stressed out, your nervous system is on edge, then you're not really going to let your parasympathetic nervous system take over and handle the automatic functions of digesting the food and turning it into energy. So yes, you're basically improperly combining food and a bad situation, and it's not going to digest well. All right, you made it. Amazing. Yes, all this could be, again, it could be its own book. I did try to, I'm sure that there's information that I missed or that's not covered here. It is based on extensive experimentation, experience, research, and guidance that I've had. So I tried to get the lion's share of it together in one place. And again, all the other information in rapid regeneration hinges on proper food combining and the ordering of the advice. Even if you wholeheartedly embrace healthy foods, raw foods, and everything, if you apply that knowledge incorrectly or out of order or in an improper combination, if for example you're like, oh, it's too much of a good thing, I love all this stuff, I'm just going to throw it in, or mixing two good things which are good separately but don't go well together, then all the benefits, all the amazing keys to unlock wellness are rendered useless. So this is a well-intentioned but poorly executed approach, and it can cause someone to harm themselves and cause acidic chemistry in the body. I'm telling you, I have a lot of friends that are healthy, and clients and coaching clients, people I do consultations with, people that contact me at rapidregeneration.com. But personally, friends, everything. They're into health and wellness. They're trying to improve their wellness, and I see it over and over and over again. People hit a plateau or they hold themselves back, and they don't realize the consequences of bad food combining. So yes, again, I don't expect you to be a saint, or follow this stuff 100%. Just be aware of it, grow your awareness, and the point of all this, again, it's not food combined for the sake of food combining. It's we're trying to reverse the chemistry of the body and put it in an alkaline, healing environment where the true godlike power of the universe can be summoned to create your best possible life. So in order to do that, you're going to need all the keys of the knowledge. You're going to need all the secrets of the ages, my friend. And the proper combining of this knowledge is of the utmost importance for you to complete your mission. So that's it. Don't underestimate it. Use this knowledge wisely because few people have it. And now that you do, take responsibility and figure out what you're going to do with it. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to help. And stay tuned. Got a few last remaining segments about foods. I hope you found this data is just game changing. And again, the website is rapidregeneration.com. That's all for now. Good luck.
For more information, please follow @Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.